Chapter 248 of Jujutsu Kaisen left us with an awesome cliffhanger as we see Yuta arrive at Shinjuku to face off against Sukuna, immediately clashing with Sukuna and summoning the Queen of Curses, Rika, who quickly smushes down Sukuna. A clash for the throne, Queen versus King. Not only is there going to be a challenge for the throne, but a challenge for Yuta also. Can he do what his sensei couldn't? Can he save his friends like he did in Volume 0? This video isn't necessarily power scaling, but more so exploring Yuta's potential, looking at this fight from a story perspective, as to how he will be the symmetry breaker for Jujutsu High versus Sukuna. Before we continue, if you guys like this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe, since I will be uploading more content similar to this. Sukuna is currently unstoppable. No matter what the cast does, they just can't seem to do anything significant to him. And they won't be able to no matter how much teamwork they do. They simply aren't in the realm of Sukuna. And it all starts with the mindset. To step into the likes of Sukuna and Gojo, you need to have an overwhelming sense of self and a complete disregard for others. But this statement is made referring to Sukuna's mindset. So there is just one flaw to this statement, which is the complete disregard to others. Gojo very clearly still cared about others and the new generation. One of his character goals was to make them as strong as him, yet he was still able to rival Sukuna. I think the main piece to stepping into the realm with Sukuna and Gojo is just manifesting your ego, only doing what satisfies you, which is exactly what they told Gojo, and exactly how Sukuna behaves. Yuta, on the other hand, seems to be the complete opposite of this. He's a little too uninterested in himself. Ryu and Uro were both kind of getting on Yuta for being too soft. A lot of people also use that moment to point out how Yuta can never be the next Gojo. They also use the Kenjaku statement where he says Yuta Okotsu can't become the next Satoru Gojo. Kenjaku is downplaying Yuta. Gojo himself thinks Yuta would have beat up Kenjaku, like he did in Volume 0, which actually happened, but even worse than in Volume 0. Yuta literally speed blitzed and one-shotted Kenjaku. So that statement of Kenjaku trying to downplay Yuta isn't going to slide here. As for the Ryu and Uro situation, they only thought that because Yuta didn't kill them, but Yuta never wanted to kill them. Like everyone else in our cast, the goal is to get the points, not to just murder these people. Even afterward, Ryu says he would have killed them if it wasn't for the rule. Yuta says maybe, playfully. And that's the thing with Yuta. He's a guy who seems like he's not all that, but when the moment comes, when things get serious, he shows up. Now, there's the statement of how Yuta is a little too uninterested in himself. So how could he possibly reach the heights of Gojo and Sukuna when he doesn't even seem to care about himself too much? Well, that's the very thing that's going to push Yuta forward. Yuta is the complete opposite of Sukuna. Almost a yin and yang situation. Sukuna is self-centered and evil. Yuta is unselfish and loving. It's set up perfectly for Yuta to be the antithesis to Sukuna. Love versus hate. How does this help Yuta reach those heights of being the strongest? Yuta's love for his comrades itself is selfish. In Volume 0, when Yuta fights Geto, Yuta's whole motivation and purpose is to keep his friends. This is what allowed him to surpass the limits of curse energy alongside Rika. This is fulfilling what Sukuna preaches about, which is just doing what you want to do, what pleases you. Geto himself recognizes this. After Yuta talks about needing to stay alive so he can continue being with his friends, Geto says how selfish, but it's self-affirmation. After all, there's nothing more important in life, which if we see what has given other characters a power boost in Jujutsu Kaisen, it has been some sort of self-affirmation. Gojo accepting he's the honored one. Yuji accepting he's the same as Mahito. That overwhelming sense of self is what gives you power. Yuta currently is in the best position possible to fully embody this ideal, this way of living, the way of the strongest. Gojo and Yorozu tried to teach Sukuna about love, but Sukuna says he understands it and that it's useless, but he's completely wrong. Yuta will be the person to teach Sukuna about love. After all, that is how Yuta was able to surpass the limits of cursed energy with pure love. It's a perfect contrast to what the series usually deals with. Cursed energy itself is negative emotions. Curses are the embodiment of these negative emotions. And with positive energy, it's like a durability negation to the curses. When Mahoraga hit Sukuna with positive energy, he said that if he was a cursed spirit, he'd be a goner. I think Yuta versus Sukuna is going to be a literal representation of this concept. Positive versus negative, evil versus love. Sukuna himself even taunted Yuta when he arrived, telling him that if he doesn't kill Sukuna, everyone that he cares about will die. This is just fueling the fire for Yuta. It's the perfect clash of truths, and I think Yuta will prevail. Yuta will be enforcing this selfish ideal of wanting to keep his friends alive against Sukuna. Yuta has already lost his sensei, and his friends are in the battlefield with the biggest threat in the universe. This is all the fuel necessary for him to surpass his limits and become even stronger than Gojo Satoru, proving to Sukuna that pure love is a power that can change the world. This isn't even far-fetched either, since Rika by herself was someone that Geto thought he could take over the Jujutsu Society with, which includes Gojo, by the way. And the last piece of it all is Gojo saying that his own personal theory is that love is the most twisted curse of them all. Now this is something that's gonna sound contradictory to what I was saying earlier of love, contrast, and hate. In this context, love was being used in a negative way, and Yuta hadn't harnessed her power yet. But this curse was dispelled by the end of Volume 0, and Yuta was able to harness this power in a positive way. He was able to harness love, the emotion Gojo considers to be the strongest of them all. So all of the pieces for Yuta and Rika winning against Sukuna are there. The question is, will Gege use it? I do think Gege has a preference for Yuta since he's the character Gege started with. Volume 0 was actually the first thing Gege had created, and it seems like the series that we currently know as Jujutsu Kaisen wasn't fully there yet. Yuta having his own movie, a manga, and special place in the series leads me to believe it's unlikely for Gege to kill him off. Even if he loses to Sukuna, I don't think Gege is capable of killing Yuta off. Now, I will say, after Gojo's death, I'm not too sure now, but Gege has expressed many times that he didn't even like Gojo. It was like he wrote himself into a corner with Gojo, and he was just waiting for the chance to kill him off. So I think it makes it a little bit safer for someone like Yuta. Something I've seen people around the community saying is that Yuta is gonna end up sacrificing himself to Rika again and becoming a different being or something like that. People say different things each time, like he's gonna be one with her, he's gonna be a cursed spirit, whatever the case is. People think he's gonna do another sacrifice like he did in Volume 0. And I don't think this theory holds up too much. The main reason being that Yuta already sacrificed himself to Rika. By accepting death with her, he indirectly dispelled the curse he put on Rika, which means there isn't a curse bond between them anymore. The manga says Rika stayed with Yuta after Rika Orimoto passed away, which shows that the sacrifice Yuta made actually went through, and it's not a misunderstanding. Some people think Rika is just like in the ring, but as the statement says, she stayed with Yuta. So their connection is still there, but not strong enough as it was before. Now it seems like it helps to channel her through the ring. I don't think it's necessary, but it does show that there is a difference now than in Volume 0. And I think the best explanation is the sacrifice Yuta did, aka dispelling the curse he put on Rika. I'm not too sure about this though. Maybe this topic itself deserves its own video. If you guys have any more insight on this, I'd appreciate to see what you guys have to say about this in the comment section. Another thing I don't see people mention too much is how much of a role Yuta's copy curse technique can play in this fight. If Yuta's able to cut some part of Sukuna off, like Higuruma did, even though Higuruma didn't cut a part off directly, but he forced Sukuna to sever his hand. Yuta can do something similar or just outright cut his hand off and have Rika eat it. Then Yuta would have access to the world slash that killed Satoru Gojo. Another fun scenario I was thinking of was, since Hikari has fully automatic healing, he could just cut some part of himself off and give it to Yuta, and Yuta would have an OP jackpot status. But then I was like, wait, how would Yuta have Hikari's domain? He'd have the technique, but not the domain, so he can't get jackpot. Until I remember a statement talking about Higuruma's and Hikari's domain that basically says their domain is open by default as part of their curse technique. So if Yuta has Hikari's curse technique, he'd also have access to Hikari's domain in virtue of the curse technique, meaning it's very possible that Hikari could set Yuta up to just be extremely overpowered with the best healing in the verse and a bottomless CE pool. He would just be able to spam all of his abilities without any worry of running out of curse energy, and he could be riskier because he can heal himself without any drawbacks. I saw in my last video, people genuinely believe Yuta has infinite curse energy, like he can't run out of curse energy and he has immense stamina, which is not true at all. He has a lot of curse energy, but not infinite. He says it himself, that he can run out of curse energy. As for the stamina, Yuta used RCT a few times in base against the Cockroach, Ryu, and Uro, and he was quickly bottoming out. Ryu noting that Yuta's reverse curse technique was consuming a lot of cursed energy. Even though Yuta replenished with Rika afterwards, I don't think he has some crazy stamina as some of you would say. Not saying that he doesn't have good stamina, I just don't think he'll last a very long time like some people think. I only bring this up just because I know some people are gonna think the infinite CE amp from Jackpot won't do anything to Yuta because they believe he already has infinite cursed energy. The last thing I'm going to address is the Gege statement about who's stronger between Prime Sukuna and Rika. He says Sukuna, so one would think there's no debate about this. But that statement is only based up to volume 15 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Things may change depending on future developments in the main story. In this case, we know there have been changes, and every character currently is going through a power spike. So we can't use this to determine current character strength. And as we explored in this video, I have given sufficient reason as to why Yuta will have an increase in power. That's all for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, make sure to let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.